Hello, and a very, very warm welcome back to another useful and insightful episode here at English in Fluency. I am so genuinely glad that you have chosen to be here with me today. Thank you for taking this time for yourself, this time to learn, to reflect, and to grow. This podcast, as you know, is not only about improving your English speaking and listening skills. It is also about exploring the big ideas that help us to live better, more meaningful, and more authentic lives. So, if you are someone who wants to speak English with greater confidence and to think with greater clarity and depth, then I assure you, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we are going to be talking about something that many people have heard of, but very few of us truly take the time to understand. We are going to be talking about core values. But before we dive into definitions, I want you to imagine something with me. Picture a magnificent ancient tree standing alone in a wide open field. A powerful storm is raging around it. The wind is howling, the rain is pouring down, and the sky is dark. The tree's branches are thrashing back and forth, and it looks as if it might break at any moment. But it does not. It bends, it sways, but its trunk remains strong, and its connection to the earth remains unbroken. When the storm finally passes, the tree is still standing, perhaps with a few lost leaves, but still standing tall, reaching for the sun. Now, imagine another tree, not far away. This one looks healthy enough, but when the same storm hits, its roots are torn from the ground, and it topples over easily. What is the difference between these two trees? The difference is not what you can see above the ground. It is not the color of the leaves or the number of branches. The difference is in what you cannot see. It is in the invisible root system that lies deep beneath the surface. The first tree survived the storm because its roots were deep, strong, and spread wide, anchoring it firmly in the earth. The second tree fell because its roots were shallow and weak. Your core values are the invisible roots of your life. They are the deeply held beliefs, the fundamental principles that anchor you, that nourish you, and that give you the strength to withstand the inevitable storms of life. They are the things that matter to you at the very deepest level. Honesty, freedom, kindness, creativity, security, adventure, family. These are the names we give to the powerful roots that determine the shape, the strength, and the health of our entire lives. But here is the thing. Many of us, perhaps most of us, go through our lives paying attention only to what is visible. Our jobs, our relationships, our daily tasks, the branches and the leaves. We never stop to consciously ask ourselves, what are the roots of my life? What are my core values? And because of that, we can often feel unstable, confused, or even deeply unhappy without truly understanding why. Have you ever felt that way? A quiet, nagging feeling that you are being pushed around by the winds of other people's expectations or the storms of daily stress. That feeling is often a sign that you are not deeply connected to your own roots. In this episode, we are going to become like patient gardeners of our own souls. We are going to explore how to understand your own unique root system, your core values, and why they are so incredibly powerful. You will learn how your values are already influencing every part of your life, how to recognize them with more clarity, and how to begin making choices that help you to grow deeper, stronger roots, so you can build a life that feels truly and authentically yours. I will also be sharing some personal stories, some practical examples, and some powerful questions that you can reflect on. And of course, you will be learning all of this in clear, natural, and accessible English. The kind of English that helps you to connect with real people in real life. So, let me ask you a question to begin. Have you ever made a big decision that felt wrong in your gut, even if everyone around you was telling you it was the right thing to do? Or have you ever said yes to something, a job, a relationship, a commitment, when every single part of you was feeling a deep sense of resistance? If you have, please do not worry. We all have. And those moments, those feelings of discomfort, are not your enemies. They are your guides. They are clues, pointing you towards the foundational roots, the values, that you may not have consciously noticed yet. By the end of this episode, my deepest hope is that you will feel more connected to yourself, more deeply rooted in your own life, and, of course, more confident in your English too. So please, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's begin this important work together. So let's start with a simple, foundational question. What are core values? Really? You have probably heard this phrase before, maybe in a book, in a business meeting, or in a motivational talk. But sometimes, the term can feel a bit abstract or unclear. The truth is, core values are not complicated, but they are incredibly powerful. At their heart, core values are the fundamental beliefs that are most important to you as an individual. They are the principles that you deeply care about, the ideals that guide your behavior, and the standards that help you to decide what is right and what is wrong for you. A good way to understand core values is by thinking of them like a personal compass. Imagine you are lost in a deep, dense forest. The trees all look the same, and you have no idea which way to go. A compass does not tell you exactly which path to take, but it always points you north. It gives you a reliable direction. Your core values work in exactly the same way. When you are lost in the confusion of life, when you are faced with a difficult decision or an uncertain future, your values act as your internal compass. They do not always give you an easy, simple answer, but they point you in the direction that is true for you. You might not always be consciously aware of your values, but they are always there, in the background, quietly helping you to find your way. If you learn to pay attention to them. Here is another way to look at it, using our metaphor from the introduction. Imagine you are building a house. What is the most important part of the house? It is the foundation. The foundation is the part that is buried underground, the part that no one sees, but it is the part that holds everything else up. If the foundation of the house is strong, level, and well built, then the rest of the house, the walls, the roof, the windows, will be stable and secure. But if the foundation is weak or crooked, the entire house will be unstable. Your values are like that invisible foundation. If your values are clear and strong, it becomes so much easier to build a life that feels balanced, meaningful, and true to who you are. But if you do not know what your values are, if your foundation is unclear, you might end up building a life that looks impressive from the outside, but on the inside, it feels unstable. It feels like it could collapse at any moment. Let me give you some specific examples of common core values to make this idea more concrete. One of the most well-known values is honesty. If you have a core value of honesty, You likely feel a deep sense of discomfort when you have to lie or hide the truth, even if it is a small, white lie. Being truthful and transparent is fundamentally important to your sense of integrity. Another common value could be growth. If you care deeply about personal development, you are probably someone who is always seeking to learn new things, to take on new challenges, and to improve yourself over time. The feeling of stagnation or being stuck would be very uncomfortable for you. Some people deeply value freedom. They need to feel independent, to make their own choices, and to live their lives on their own terms. A life with too many rules or too much control would feel like a prison to them. Others might put family first. For them, making decisions that support and care for their loved ones is their highest priority. There are hundreds of other possible values. Values like kindness, the desire to be compassionate and helpful to others; fairness, the belief in justice and equality; creativity, the need to express yourself and to create new things; discipline, the value of self-control and hard work; peace, the deep desire for a calm and harmonious life; faith, a connection to a higher power or a spiritual path; adventure, the need for excitement, new experiences, and risk; success, the drive to achieve and to be recognized for your accomplishments; and purpose, the feeling that your life is contributing to something bigger than yourself. Each person has their own unique combination of values. You might share some values with your friends or your family, but your personal hierarchy of what is most important is unique to you. No two people have the exact same internal architecture, and that is what makes our values so personal and so powerful. They are formed from a complex mix of your life experiences, your culture, your upbringing, your education, and sometimes even from your greatest struggles and your deepest pain. It is also very important to understand that what is considered a core value can look very different depending on where you are in the world. Culture plays a huge role in shaping our values. For example, in many Western countries, like the United States or Western Europe, people are often taught from a young age to value independence and individualism. Young adults are generally encouraged to move out of their parents' home, to become financially independent, and to build their own lives as soon as possible. The individual's personal success and happiness are often seen as the primary goal, but in many Asian, Middle Eastern, or Latin American cultures, for example, the values of family, community, and interdependence might be seen as much more important. In these cultures, people are often expected to care for their aging parents, to stay geographically close to their family, and to make decisions based on what is best for the group, not just what is best for the individual. Neither of these approaches is inherently right or wrong. They are just different ways of living, based on different sets of cultural values. Even within a single culture, different generations can have different core values. Your grandparents might deeply value hard work and stability, especially if they lived through times of economic depression or war. Your parents' generation may care more about education and career success, and your own generation might place a higher value on things like freedom, mental health, work-life balance, or creativity. These generational differences in values can sometimes create tension or misunderstanding, especially when people from one generation try to impose their values on another. This is why it is so incredibly important to pause and ask yourself, What do I truly value? Not my parents, not my culture, not my friends, but me. When you know the answer to that question, life begins to feel a little clearer. Decisions that were once confusing start to become easier. You do not feel as lost or as pulled in different directions because you have your own internal compass, your own set of values, pointing you in your true direction. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Alex, I value a lot of these things. I value honesty and family and growth and kindness, and that is completely normal. Most of us do, but some of our values are stronger than others. Some of them are truly core to who we are. They are the values that truly define you, the ones that, if you had to live without them, you would feel like you were not being yourself. The goal of this process is not to choose the right values from a list. The goal is to discover and understand your values, the ones that matter most to you, personally. In the next part of this episode, we are going to talk about why these values matter so much in your everyday life. How do they affect your choices, your relationships, and your happiness? You might be very surprised to discover how often your values are already guiding your life, even when you do not consciously realize it. But before we move on, I want to ask you something to reflect on. Take a moment and think. When was a time in your life when you felt truly, deeply proud of yourself? What were you doing? Why did that action or that moment feel so right? And on the other hand, when have you felt really uncomfortable in your own skin? Like you were wearing a costume or pretending to be someone else? These moments, these feelings, are powerful clues. They are pointing you towards your core values. Your emotions often tell the truth, even when your mind is confused. So, please stay with me. We are just getting started. By the end of this episode, you will have a much clearer picture of what really matters to you, and how you can begin to build a life that is in beautiful alignment with it. And of course, you will be practicing your English in a way that is real, meaningful, and motivating. Now that we have a clear understanding of what core values are, let's talk about the most important part: why they actually matter. Not just in theory, not just as big, abstract ideas, but in your real, tangible, everyday life. You see, your values are not just a list of words that live in your head. They are an active, dynamic force. They show up in your small, daily choices, in your long-term habits, in your relationships, in your career goals, and even in how you choose to spend your free time. Whether you are aware of it or not, your values are constantly shaping the contours of your life, every single day. Let's take a simple, practical example. Imagine a person named David, and let's say that one of David's core values is freedom. He deeply enjoys feeling independent, having control over his own schedule, and not being stuck in a rigid routine. Now, if David takes a job where every single hour of his day is planned by someone else, where he has to follow strict rules and procedures all day long, and where there is no flexibility, he might start to feel deeply unhappy, even if the job pays very well and looks good on his resume. On the surface, from the outside, everything might look perfect, but deep inside, something will feel fundamentally wrong. Why? Because his daily reality, his job, is in direct conflict with his core value of freedom. Over time, David might start to feel bored, frustrated, resentful, or even completely burned out. And if he does not understand that the root cause of his unhappiness is this value conflict, he might start to blame himself. He might think, "What's wrong with me? I should be grateful for this job," when in reality, the job itself is not necessarily bad. It is just a very bad fit for him and his internal architecture. That is why understanding your values is so incredibly important. It helps you to make better, more informed decisions, not just about big things like your career, but also about the friendships you cultivate, the romantic relationships you enter into, and how you choose to use your precious time and energy. When your daily actions are in alignment with your core values, life begins to feel more natural, more authentic, and much less stressful. You feel like you are being your true self, not pretending to be someone else just to fit in or to please others. I will share a personal story with you that illustrates this perfectly. A few years ago, I was offered a job that, honestly, looked perfect on paper. The salary was very good, the office was modern and beautiful, and all the people I met during the interviews seemed very nice and professional. I accepted the offer, and for the first few weeks, I was excited. But after a few months, I started to feel a strange sense of exhaustion. It was not just physical tiredness, it was a kind of soul tiredness. I did not feel excited to go to work in the morning. In fact, I started to feel like I was slowly losing a vital part of myself. At first, I could not understand why. I told myself I should be happy. But then, I took some time to reflect, and I realized something crucial. One of my most important core values is growth. I love learning new things. I thrive when I am being challenged. I feel most alive when I am improving myself over time. But in that particular job, everything was repetitive. There were no new challenges. I was not learning anything new. I was just performing the same set of tasks every single day, like a machine. And that experience was in complete opposition to what I valued most. Once I understood that, everything made sense. It was not that I was being lazy or ungrateful, or that the job was a bad job. It was simply that the job and my core values were not in alignment. So, I made the difficult decision to start looking for something different. Something that would allow me to learn, to teach, and to grow. And when I finally made that change, it was like a light switched on inside of me. I felt like I had my energy back. I was excited to wake up in the morning again. That is the incredible power of living a life that is in alignment with your values. Sometimes, we also need to set boundaries based on our values. For example, let's say you deeply value family time, but your friends are constantly inviting you out late every weekend. Or your boss expects you to be available to answer emails at all hours of the night. You might start to feel stressed, resentful, and pulled in too many directions because you are not getting the quality time you need with the people you care about most. In this case, your values are telling you that you may need to set some clear and kind boundaries. You might need to learn to say no more often, not because you are being selfish or unkind, but because you are protecting what is most important to you. Setting healthy boundaries is not always easy. It can be very uncomfortable at first, but it is often absolutely necessary if you want to stay true to your values and live a balanced life. It is also important to remember that living out of alignment with your values does not always feel bad right away. The negative effects are often slow and cumulative. You can stay in the wrong job, or the wrong relationship, or the wrong lifestyle for months, or even years. before you finally realize why you are not truly happy. That is why self-awareness is such an important skill to cultivate. The more you can learn to pay attention to your own feelings, to the subtle signals of your body and your emotions in certain situations, the easier it becomes to notice when something does not feel right. It is like your emotions are a sophisticated guidance system, constantly sending you messages. You just have to learn to listen to them. So let me ask you a question to reflect on. Can you remember a time in your life when you made a choice that just did not feel right in your gut, even if other people were telling you it was the smart or logical choice? Or maybe you can remember a time when you stayed silent in a situation where you really wanted to speak up, perhaps to avoid a conflict. What did that feel like inside your body? Did that feeling of discomfort stay with you afterwards? These are the kinds of moments where our values are trying to speak to us. When we ignore them, we often feel a sense of regret or inner conflict. But when we listen to them, even if it is uncomfortable or difficult in the moment, we usually feel a sense of pride, of strength, and of integrity. We feel like we are being ourselves. That is why living by your values is not always the easiest path, but it is always the most rewarding one. It means choosing what matters most to you, even when it is not the popular choice. It means learning to trust your own inner voice, even when others do not understand. And it means taking the time and the effort to build a life that is a true and beautiful reflection of you, not just a copy of someone else's idea of success or happiness. So, the next time you are faced with a big decision, or even a small one, I invite you to try asking yourself this simple question. Does this choice align with what I truly believe? That one simple question can be your compass. It can help you to choose the path that feels right, not just the one that looks right. And when you start to consistently make choices that are based on your core values, you will notice a profound shift, not only in the circumstances of your life, but in your confidence, your peace of mind, and your overall energy. In the next part of our episode, we are going to talk about what happens in more detail when we do not live in alignment with our values. Because sometimes the pain and frustration we feel in our lives is actually a very important signal. A message that we are moving away from what truly matters to us. So please do not go anywhere. We are going deeper in just a moment. So far, we have talked about what core values are and why they matter so much in your life. Now, let's go a little bit deeper and ask a very important question. What happens when you do not live in alignment with your values? In other words, what are the consequences when your daily actions, your major life decisions, and your overall lifestyle go in a different direction from what you truly, deeply believe on the inside? The answer is simple, but it is also very powerful. You feel it. The misalignment creates a kind of internal friction, a disharmony. Maybe it does not happen right away, but over time, something starts to feel off. You begin to experience a sense of discomfort. And this is not just a physical discomfort. It is emotional. It is mental. It is a deep feeling in your soul. You might find yourself feeling tired, easily irritated, unmotivated, or just vaguely empty. And you might not even know why. Let's look at some of the common signs that show you might be living out of alignment with your values. One of the most common signs is a feeling of chronic stress or anxiety. Now, of course, some stress is a normal and unavoidable part of modern life. We all experience it. But when you are constantly living in a way that goes against your core values, the stress does not come and go. It becomes a permanent resident in your life. It builds up. It becomes a part of your everyday experience. For example, imagine someone who has a core value of peace and calm, but they work in a very fast-paced, high-pressure, competitive sales environment. Every day, they have to push themselves to be aggressive, to meet high targets, and to be in a constant state of urgency. They might be good at their job. They might even be making a lot of money. But inside, they feel like they are drowning in a sea of stress. No amount of vacation or weekend rest can truly fix that kind of stress, because the real problem is that their daily environment is in direct conflict with their fundamental need for peace. Another very common sign is burnout. Burnout is more than just feeling tired. It is a state of complete emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion. It is when you feel cynical and disconnected from the things you used to care about. It is like your inner fire, your motivation, and your passion has just gone out. You wake up in the morning with a heavy feeling, wondering, what is the point of all this? This often happens to people who are working very, very hard. But they are climbing the wrong mountain. Maybe they are chasing goals that are not even their own. Goals that their society, their parents, or their friends told them were important and would lead to happiness. They might achieve these goals, get the prestigious job, buy the big house. But deep inside, they feel empty and unfulfilled, because those goals do not connect with what they truly believe in. Their hard work is not nourishing their soul. You may also experience a constant feeling of inner conflict. This is when your head is telling you to do one thing, but your heart is telling you to do something else. You might say yes to something. Maybe it is a job promotion, a new relationship, or a big family responsibility. Everyone around you is telling you that you should be happy and excited. But inside, you feel a sense of dread, a feeling that is pulling you back. This feeling is not just fear of the unknown. It is not laziness. It is your value system, your inner compass, trying to speak to you. But many of us, from a young age, are taught to ignore that inner voice. We are taught to be practical, to be logical, to make choices that look good on the outside. But in doing that, we sometimes stop being true to ourselves. And here is the most difficult and confusing part of this whole experience. From the outside, your life can look absolutely perfect. You may have a good job, a nice car, nice clothes, and you might even have a big smile on your face when you are with other people. People might look at your life and think, wow, they are doing so great. But on the inside, you feel lost, confused, or deeply unhappy, and you cannot understand why. So let me ask you this question to reflect on. Have you ever felt lost, even though everything in your life looked fine on the outside? That feeling is not a mistake. It is not something to be ignored or pushed away. It is a very important message from your inner self. It is your soul's way of saying, hey, this is not me. This is not what I really want. Sometimes, we try to cover up these feelings of misalignment with distractions. We keep ourselves incredibly busy, so we do not have time to think. We scroll endlessly through our phones to numb our minds. We avoid quiet moments alone because the silence can feel uncomfortable. But those feelings, they do not just disappear. They wait. And over time, they can grow stronger. You might start to feel deeply disconnected from your own life, like you are just an actor playing a role. You might start asking those big existential questions like, why am I even doing this? Or, is this all there is to life? That is why the practice of self-reflection is so incredibly important. When you feel that sense of discomfort, that inner friction, do not just push it away. Get curious about it. Ask yourself, what value of mine is being ignored or violated in this situation? Maybe you have a core value of honesty, but you are in a situation at work where you have to hide your true opinions to keep your job. That will create inner conflict. Maybe you have a core value of freedom, but your daily schedule is so packed with commitments to other people that you do not even have a single hour to yourself. That will lead to burnout. Maybe you have a core value of creativity, but your work is completely repetitive and does not allow you to express yourself. That will lead to a feeling of emptiness. These situations create a deep tension inside of us, and our body, our mind, and our emotions feel it. The wonderful news is that once you become aware of this misalignment, you can start to make changes. You do not have to change your entire life overnight. That is often impossible and overwhelming. But even very small, gentle adjustments can help you to feel more like yourself again. You might start by saying no to one small thing that does not feel right. You might choose to speak up with your true opinion in one meeting, even if your voice shakes a little. You might decide to carve out just 30 minutes a week to do something that truly fills your soul, not just your schedule. And that can be the beginning of something powerful, something real. So if you are feeling lost, tired, or stuck, do not just ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Instead, try asking, what's missing? What important part of me, what core value, is being ignored? Because the answers, they are already inside you. They have just been waiting patiently for you to listen. In the next part of this episode, we are going to talk about how to actually discover your core values, because knowing them with clarity is the very first step to living a life that is in beautiful alignment with them. And once you know your values, your decisions become easier, your energy comes back, and your life starts to feel deeply and wonderfully meaningful. So please stay with me. We are getting closer to something truly life-changing. Now that we have talked about what core values are and how they profoundly affect your life, you might be wondering, okay, Alex, this all makes sense, but how do I actually discover my own core values? That is a fantastic and very important question. And the answer is both simple and deep. Discovering your values is not something that happens in one single minute. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of quiet attention, and a commitment to be honest with yourself. But the wonderful news is that you do not need any special tools or any expert training. All you really need is a sense of curiosity, a willingness to reflect, and a little bit of space to listen to your own inner voice. One of the most effective and accessible ways to start this process is by journaling. The simple act of writing your thoughts down on paper can help you to see them with much more clarity. Sometimes, our thoughts and feelings can feel like a tangled ball of string inside our heads. But when we write them down, we can begin to gently untangle them. You do not have to write perfectly. This is not a school essay or a test. Just be real and be honest. You can start with some powerful, open-ended questions. Questions like, what do I care about most in my life? Or, what makes me feel truly proud of the person I am? Try to describe a time in your life when you felt really alive, really fulfilled, or deeply at peace. What were you doing? Who were you with? What specific part of that experience felt the most meaningful to you? Very often, your core values are hiding inside the heart of those beautiful moments. Another very helpful method is to reflect on the high points and the low points of your life. First, think back to a time when you felt extremely happy, proud, or energized. A peak experience. It could be a big achievement, like graduating from school or getting a promotion, or it could be a small, quiet moment, like a beautiful conversation with a friend or a walk in nature. What was happening in that moment? What values were present? Maybe it was a time when you helped someone, kindness. Maybe you created something new, creativity. Maybe you stood up for what you believe in, courage. Or maybe you learned something new, growth. Now, do the opposite. Think about a difficult moment in your life, a low point, a time when you felt hurt, frustrated, angry, or deeply disappointed. What was missing in that situation? Were your boundaries crossed? Were you forced to be dishonest when you value honesty? Did you feel controlled when you value freedom? Often, our strongest emotional reactions, both positive and negative, are powerful signals that are pointing directly to what we truly value. Here is a short, reflective activity that you can try right now. You do not need to pause the episode. Just allow your mind to wander for a moment. I want you to ask yourself, what are 3 moments in my life when I felt truly proud of myself? Do not rush the answer. Think deeply. These could be big, public achievements, or they could be small, private personal victories that no one else even knows about. Maybe it was the moment you finished your education. Maybe it was a time you helped a friend through a difficult period. Maybe it was the brave decision to move to a new country and learn English. Now, for each of those 3 moments, ask yourself this follow-up question. Why does that moment matter so much to me? Try to name the value that was behind your action. Was it courage? Was it growth? Was it love? Was it responsibility? Was it honesty? The answers to these questions might really surprise you. Let me share another personal story with you. When I was younger, I had a deep desire to make other people happy. I said yes to almost everything. Even when I did not have the time or the energy, I was terrified of disappointing anyone. But over time, I started to feel tired, and sometimes even resentful. One day, a close friend asked me for help with a big project, and, of course, I said yes, even though I already had important plans of my own that evening. Later, I had to cancel my own plans, and I missed something that was very important to me, and I felt really bad about it. That night, I sat down and I asked myself, why do I keep doing this to myself? I realized something incredibly important. I value balance. I want to be a supportive and helpful friend, but I also need to take care of my own needs and my own well-being. That was the moment I truly understood that balance was one of my core values, and that realization changed the way I made decisions. I started to practice saying no more often, but I learned to say it kindly, and with love, and slowly, step by step. I started to feel more like myself again. I felt more balanced. You see, Discovering your values does not always come from reading books or taking classes. It often comes from these real-life moments of friction, the moments that make us stop and think. You just need to learn to pay attention to them. Sometimes, people can also find clues to their own values by looking at the people they admire. Think of someone you respect deeply. It could be a teacher, a family member, a historical figure, a public leader, or even a character from a book or a film. What specific qualities do you admire most about them? Is it their courage, their honesty, their kindness, their passion, their discipline? Very often, the qualities that we admire most in other people are also the values that we want to live by in our own lives. They are a mirror reflecting back to us what we hold as important. Here is another practical tip. Do not try to choose too many values at once. It can be overwhelming. Start by trying to identify your top 3 to 5 core values, the ones that feel truly essential to you. You do not have to get it perfect on the first try. In fact, it is very likely that your values will grow and change as you move through different stages of your life. And that is completely normal and healthy. The goal is not to create a perfect, unchanging list that is carved in stone. The goal is to understand yourself better right now, at this stage of your life. And please remember, this entire process is not about judging yourself. It is about knowing yourself. When you take the time to explore your core values, you are giving yourself a precious gift, the gift of clarity. You are creating a stronger and more beautiful connection between who you are on the inside and how you choose to live on the outside. And that kind of self-awareness brings with it a deep sense of confidence, peace, and purpose. So, I encourage you, take some time after this episode. Reflect, write, think. Talk to someone you trust. Your values are already there, inside you. You just need to create a little bit of quiet space and listen. And once you begin to discover them, you will start to see your entire life through a new and clearer lens. You will understand why certain things feel so right for you, and why other things feel so wrong. You will feel stronger and more confident when you are making choices. And most of all, you will start to feel more at home in your own life. In the next part of this episode, we are going to talk about some of the common challenges people face when they try to live by their values. Because even when you know what your values are, it is not always easy to follow them. Especially in a world that is full of pressure, fear, and other people's expectations. But do not worry. We will walk through it together. Please stay with me. So, now that we have talked about what core values are and how you can begin to discover them, let's take a moment to look at something just as important. Let's talk about the challenges that often come with trying to live by your values. Because let's be very real and honest. It is not always easy. You might have already started thinking about your own core values, and maybe you felt a sense of excitement and clarity. Or maybe you felt a little bit confused or even scared. That is okay. That is completely normal. Understanding and living by your core values is a personal journey. And like any important journey, it often comes with a few bumps and challenges in the road. One of the biggest and most common challenges that people face is peer pressure. This is the powerful feeling that you have to act a certain way, or make certain choices, because everyone around you, your friends, your family, your colleagues, expects it. Maybe you have discovered that one of your core values is honesty, but you find yourself in a work environment where people often cut corners or are not completely truthful to get ahead. Or maybe you deeply value kindness, but your group of friends often makes jokes at other people's expense. It can be incredibly difficult and lonely to stand your ground and stay true to yourself when it feels like you are the only one who is going in a different direction. Another very common challenge is perfectionism. This is the idea that you have to live your values perfectly every single day without ever making a mistake. But the truth is, no one gets it right all the time. And that is okay. Living by your values does not mean that you will never make a mistake or feel confused. Sometimes, you might act in a way that goes against your values, perhaps by accident or in a moment of anger or fear. Maybe you say something you later regret, or maybe you stay silent when you wish you had spoken up. It happens to all of us. The goal is not about being perfect. It is about being honest with yourself. The real growth happens when you can notice the misstep, learn from it, and gently try again. That is how we become stronger and more self-aware. And then there is the very powerful fear of judgment. This is something that so many of us deal with, often without even consciously realizing it. Maybe you have discovered that one of your top values is creativity. You love to write, or draw, or sing. But you are afraid to share that part of yourself with the world because you think people might not take you seriously, or they might think it is a waste of time. Or maybe one of your core values is freedom, but your family has a very strong expectation that you will follow a more traditional path. Get a stable job, get married, and live in your hometown. These situations can be incredibly difficult and can create a lot of inner conflict. And in those moments, your values might feel like a secret that you have to hide, instead of a beautiful light that you are living by. Another common misunderstanding that can be a challenge is thinking that your core values should stay the same forever, as if they are carved in stone. But here is the profound truth. Your values can grow and change, just like you do. And that does not mean that your values from the past were wrong. It simply means that you are evolving. For example, a person might deeply value adventure and independence in their 20s, but later in life, after they have children, they might begin to value connection and stability more deeply. That is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. It shows that you are paying attention to what matters most to you in your current stage of life. So please, do not be afraid if you notice your values shifting over time. Life has many different seasons, and each season may ask different things from you. And finally, one more challenge I would like to talk about is the feeling of confusion. Sometimes, people can feel very overwhelmed when they first start trying to figure out their core values. You might ask yourself, what if I do not know what matters most to me? Or, what if I choose the wrong values? But the wonderful news is, there is no wrong answer. This is not a test. It is a process of self-discovery. You are allowed to explore. You are allowed to try things out. And you are even allowed to change your mind. What is truly important is that you are asking the questions. That is how clarity begins, with a spirit of curiosity and gentle self-reflection. So, if you find yourself struggling with any of these challenges, please remember this. You are not alone. Everyone who tries to live an intentional life faces doubts, confusion, or outside pressure at some point. But that does not mean that you should stop. In fact, these challenging moments are often where the deepest and most meaningful growth happens. Each challenge you face is like a mirror. It is showing you where your values are strongest, or where you might want to dig a little deeper. Let me leave you with this final thought for this section. Have you ever felt that pressure to be someone you are not? Just to fit in or to be accepted? If so, you already know how powerful and how difficult it can be to stay true to yourself. But you also probably know how incredibly freeing and empowering it feels when you do. So please, be kind to yourself throughout this process. You are learning, you are growing, and you are courageously building a life that is based on what matters most to you. That is a brave and beautiful thing, and that is always worth celebrating. Now that we have talked about what core values are, why they are so important, and how to begin the journey of discovering your own, let's explore something that is just as vital. How do you actually live your values in your daily life? Because at the end of the day, knowing your values is only the first step. The real, deep transformation happens when you begin to act on them. Not just once, in a big, dramatic moment, but over and over again, in the small, quiet, and often unnoticed moments of your everyday life. You do not need to make a big announcement to the world. You do not need to quit your job, move to another country, or become a completely different person. Overnight, living your values does not have to be a dramatic performance. In fact, most of the time, it looks very ordinary. But the internal impact, the feeling of alignment and peace, is incredibly powerful. Let's say one of your top core values is honesty. Living that value in your daily life might mean choosing to be honest with your partner about how you are truly feeling, instead of pretending that everything is okay when it is not. It could mean giving your boss respectful but honest feedback during a meeting, instead of staying silent. These are small conversations, but they are powerful acts. They build trust in your relationships, and more importantly, they build trust in yourself. Or maybe one of your core values is growth. Living that value does not mean you have to enroll in a university and get another degree. It might mean choosing to read a book that challenges your thinking for 15 minutes a day. It could mean signing up for a short online course in a subject you are curious about. Or it could be as simple as spending 10 minutes a day practicing a new skill on an app. These are tiny actions, but over time, they add up. They change your mindset. They expand your world. They show you, and the people around you, that you care about becoming a better version of yourself. How about freedom as a core value? Living that value could mean something as simple as setting clear boundaries around your time. It could mean deciding that you will not check your work emails after 7 p.m. It could mean saying no to social invitations that drain your energy. It could mean choosing to spend your weekend doing something that truly recharges you, not just what other people expect you to do. At first, this might feel very uncomfortable. You might even feel a little bit guilty. But the more you practice honoring your need for freedom and space, the easier it becomes. You start to intentionally create a life that actually fits you, not just a life that looks good on paper. One of my listeners once shared a beautiful story with me. She had done some reflection and realized that family was one of her most important values. But when she looked at her life honestly, she saw that her schedule was always completely packed. There were meetings, emails, and an endless to-do list. She was not spending much quality time with her children. So, she decided to make one small, simple change. Every single evening, for just 30 minutes, between 6:30 and 7, she would put her phone in another room, turn off the television, and just play with her kids. No distractions. Her only job was to be present with them. She told me that those 30 minutes changed everything. Not only did her kids feel more loved and connected to her, but she felt more fulfilled, more present, and more at peace than she had in years. That is the incredible power of living your values. It does not take hours of your day. It just takes intention and consistency. So, here is a gentle reminder for you. It is not about taking big, perfect, dramatic steps. It is about taking small, honest, consistent ones. Do not wait for the right time or for everything in your life to be perfectly clear. Choose one value that you know matters to you. Just one. And ask yourself this simple question. What is one small action I can take today that would honor this value? Maybe it is sending a kind and encouraging message to someone you care about. Kindness. Maybe it is taking a short, quiet walk by yourself to clear your mind. Peace. Maybe it is simply saying no when something does not feel right in your gut. Integrity. And please, do not worry if it feels hard sometimes. That is a normal and expected part of the process. You are changing old patterns. You are growing. The key is to stay consistent, not perfect. Progress in life always starts small. It is like planting a garden. You plant the seeds, and then you water them a little bit every day. You do not see a huge change right away. But one day, you look back, and you realize that you have created something beautiful and meaningful. You have created a life that is a true and honest reflection of who you are. So I encourage you, go gently, be honest with yourself. Take those small steps, and trust that every single action matters, especially the quiet, internal ones that no one else sees. Because in the end, living your values, one small choice at a time, is how you create real, lasting change in your life. And maybe, just maybe, even in the world around you. And now, as we come to the end of our journey together today, let's take a moment to pause and return to our opening image. The idea of a life that feels like a piece of clothing that was tailored perfectly for you. We started with a simple question. What are your core values? And from there, we have explored how these values are more than just words. They are the invisible architecture of your life, the foundation of your decisions, your relationships, your goals, and the way you live every day. Together, we have talked about how to discover this inner blueprint. By looking at the moments in life when you feel most proud, most alive, or even most frustrated. We have seen how living in alignment with this blueprint brings a profound sense of inner peace and clarity, like coming home to yourself. So, if you have made it this far with me, I want to say from the very bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for listening, for being curious, and for showing up for yourself. Learning a language is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It is about learning how to express your true thoughts, your real feelings, and your deepest values with confidence. In doing this work, you are not only improving your English, you are growing as a human being, and that is something truly powerful and worth celebrating. Here is one final thought I would love to leave you with. Your life is an unpainted canvas. Your values are your unique set of colors. You are the artist. You do not need to create a masterpiece overnight. You do not need anyone else's permission to choose your colors or to start painting. All you need to do is to take the first step. So here is my final call to action. My invitation to you. Choose one color, one value that you know is true for you. And this week, make one small brushstroke on your canvas. Take one small action that honors that value. If you value kindness, maybe that brushstroke is a single kind word to a stranger. If you value growth, maybe that brushstroke is reading one page of a new book. If you value peace, maybe it is 5 minutes of quiet breathing. That is all. One small, intentional, beautiful brushstroke. Because when you start to live your values, your life starts to feel like your own creation. A work of art that is honest, brave, and true to who you are. If this episode spoke to you in a special way, I invite you to listen to it again later this week, perhaps with a notebook by your side. Share it with someone who might find it helpful. And of course, if you are enjoying this podcast, please do not forget to follow our channel, English in Fluency, for more episodes that help you grow your English and yourself at the same time. Your support means so much, and it helps us build this community of learners who are supporting each other along the way. Remember, step by step, word by word, choice by choice. You are building a life that not only looks good on the outside, but feels like home on the inside. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep growing.